School Committee and the Teachers Union, the SEA, and the Springfield School Committee and the Paraprofessionals Union, the AFT. The committee will return to open session.
Thank you, Vice Chair Collins. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Second by Ms. Gresham. Roll call vote is required. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Ms. Naylor? Absent. Attorney Murphy?
Yes.
Ms. Hurst?
Yes.
Ms. Gresham?
Yes.
Ms. Perez?
Yes.
Mr. Collins?
Yes.
Mayor Sarno?
Yes, 4 in submission votes, matter passes. Thank you very much, and we'll go.
Log out and then log into the
session.
executive session Zoom, if you would, please.
And they watch on
They
channel 17.
they can either go on 17 or.
Or live.
Barbara, can you hear us? Yeah.
Yes, I can hear you.
mean, it's no, rumble seat.
Let's see. Ooh, look, come here.
Brendan or Josue, are you ready to go live?
You're good to go.
Okay,
Thank you.
all right, thank you very much. We'll call the meeting to order. This is student representatives, and I want to thank again Focus Springfield. You've been absolutely fantastic. Josue, was it Brendan or Josue, Chris?
I think we're Brendan.
Brendan.
Like Brendan.
Brendan, thank you very, very much. And all school committee members are on here in person is School Committee Woman Latonia Naylor, Vice Chair Chris Collins, myself, Mayor Dominic Sarno, Superintendent Warwick, and all of the school committee members are here on Zoom because we want to hear from you. And first on the list is Springfield Public Day Middle School. Dominic Rehals, that's a good name, Dominic, and Marquise Copney, if I pronounce it wrong, correct me, and they're here by, supported by Principal Rhonda Jacobs, the mother of the hoopster, Linda Singer, Assistant Principal, Carmen Zayas, City Connects Coordinator. So Principal Jacobs, I don't know if you want to open up, or anybody wants to open up first before we go to Dominic and Marquise.
I'll let Linda Singer do the pleasure.
Okay, Miss Singer, you're on to sing us a song. Go ahead.
Okay, these are two 8th graders that I've had since 6th grade, and they've come a long way, and I can't tell you how proud I am of both of these guys. So Dominic's gonna go first, and then Marquise second. So you're on, Dominic.
Okay, let me open this real quick. All right. Good evening, school committee. My name is Dominic Rios,
Good evening.
8th grader at Public Day Middle. My experience here has been great. When I first came to the school, I wasn't doing great. I was getting in trouble every day, disrupting classmates, not finishing my work, and making it harder for the teacher to help me grow. In the 7th grade, it was the same thing. When I got to the 8th grade, everything changed. I started to mature a little. My teacher and classmates started to realize I had changed. My mom put me in football, and it helped me with a lot of my anger and helped me think better. I want to thank all my teachers that helped me become the person I am now. Thank you and good night.
Good job, Dominic. All right. Right from the heart. Very good, Dominic. Marquise, you're up. I think you're muted, Marquise. Yep. Yeah. That's okay. I still use an Etch-a-Sketch, so, Marquise, don't worry about that.
Marquise, it's okay. You don't have to show your face. Just go ahead and talk. You wrote a nice speech.
Oh, you're doing fine, Marquise.
I don't really want to speak at all.
You know what?
Oh, you know what? Marquise, sometimes I feel that way too, but if you, from your head, your heart, your gut, even if it's only a few words, we'd love to hear from you. I get those nerves and butterflies in my stomach too. So can you help me, Marquise? If you speak, you're going to help me the next time I get some butterflies. So we'd love to hear something from you, Marquise, okay? Even if it's just hello. You can do it. I know you can. Okay, I know you're waving right now. Okay, then we're going to get you next time, though. We're going to get you next time. All right, Marquise, next time you will do it. We're proud of you. We're proud of you, okay? Okay, now we're going to move to STEM Middle School. Alani Davila and Julian Anderson, supported by, I saw Principal Martinez was on earlier. And Eduardo Martinez, they got the M&M boys there. Okay, yeah, assistant principal. So I don't know who wants to open up before the kids come on, please?
Yeah, actually, I'm gonna.
Ms. Martin?
Hi, good evening, school committee. I'm actually going to defer this to our assistant principal. He never gets to talk in any of these functions, so I'm going to defer to him and have him.
Okay, assistant principal Martinez,
Okay, I would like to
the
say,
M&M boys.
thank you. I'd like to start by saying the two students that we picked really personify our spirit and our student body at STEM. And
Very
Ms.
good.
help them come through this speech. So you,
Okay, so who's going first, Delaney or Julian? Alani or Julian? Julian, you're on.
Hello.
How you doing?
I'm doing good. How about you?
I'm doing good. I'm going to be doing better when after I listen to you.
Yes. I don't know where Alani is, so I think I'm gonna have to do the whole speech for myself.
Okay.
So even though we aren't in the building, STEM kept everything the same with activities and clubs, just as it would be if we were in the school personally. Like all other schools, when remote learning first started, education became different from how we learn in regular school STEM building. But even though through the hardest times, STEM made education fun. Even through remote learning, the opportunities to be a part of STEM activities didn't change. We kept activities such as Spirit Week going. Spirit Week is a week full of themes and dressing up. At STEM, we vote on which theme we want to do for Spirit Week ahead of time. After all the votes has been counted, we can dress up as a theme come time for this special event. We also get to post a picture of us in our Spirit outfits on an app called Padlet. We had Spirit Week last week for spring. The themes included storybooks, celebrity, pride, anime video game, and Among Us Day. We also had Winter Spirit Week the week before vacation. All students, including us, of course, enjoyed this week very much and couldn't picture our school without it. All students here at STEM are also rewarded with an opportunity to be part of some special activities. Not too long ago, we had a guest speaker come in and explain her job to us and tell us what she does and how the planning works at her job. She was a city planner. Her explaining her job then led us to start of our science project where we had to make a new shed design for the school and pick a good place to put it. It was an amazing and very helpful experience that I know many students in other schools might not have the opportunity for. But overall, our experience during remote learning at STEM has been amazing. It's a surprisingly fun challenge. School can get tough online, but if we need help, the students and staff help us with any questions, check-ins, concern, or if we need someone to talk to. As STEM scholars, we work together to get through the hardest times because we are STEM.
Julian, way to go, man, way to go. All right. Elaine missed something on it. Very good, very good. Now, I know that Zanetti Montessori is in the house and supported by Principal Tara Christian Clark is here and Kelly Shea, ELA and social studies teacher. And I know you have Rylan Murphy and Colin Shea. And I know this little young lady, Gabby Casey. You tell your grandmother, Juti, I said hello, and your father and mother, Pat. Hello, and I know Ava Moore and Evelyn Boulia, and Evelyn, tell your mother and father I said hello too. So let me turn it over to Principal Clark. Principal Clark? I saw her on. Okay, how about Kelly Shea? Miss Shea?
Hi, how are you? We have
Good, how are you?
good. We have lots of great speakers. I've had Ava and Evelyn. I had them in 6th grade, and now I have the honor of having them again this year. And then we have Rylan and Colin came back to school in the building, so they're going to chat about that. And Gabby's going to tell us about learning online.
All right, so who's teeing it up? Who's going first?
Gabby, you're on.
Okay.
Hello, Mayor Sarno, Superintendent Warwick, and guests. My name is Gabby Casey, and I'm a sixth grader at Zanetti Middle School. Like all students in sixth grade here, my first year of middle school was unlike anyone else's before because it was remote. At first, it seemed like it would be sad because I wouldn't get to see anyone or have a typical sixth grade experience. But now I can confidently say the transition to middle school was actually better because it was remote. If we were in person at school this year, I would have had to adjust to all the unfamiliar social distancing guidelines while having to adjust to lots of other things. When you enter middle school, you go from being in the same classroom all day for a year to suddenly going to 6 different classrooms each day for every period, which would have been an overwhelming difference. That takes a lot of organization. I'd also have all new teachers, classmates, and learning spaces I'd never been in before. It would have been all unfamiliar, and that can make people really nervous. Since we were learning remotely this year, I didn't end up having to worry about any of that. I simply just joined a Teams meeting on my computer, right where I was safe and comfortable. This made my first year of middle school a lot easier. I think my favorite part of remote learning is our student-led advisory. Student-led advisory happens once a week in my advisory. We have 3 student leaders that day. They decide on an activity to host. They plan for it and run the activity for the group of students during the advisory block. Each student in advisory breaks up into the group of their choice based on their interests that day. Student-led advisory was great because it gave us a chance to communicate with our friends still, even though we cannot see them in person. It also lets you do things we like to do together. I learned a lot during remote learning, but one thing in particular is patience, and a lot of it. During remote learning, a lot of tech problems can occur. Sometimes sound doesn't work, or unified classroom is down, or you get kicked out of the meeting. I learned that sometimes you have to take a deep breath and the problem is resolved. Our live classes always went well for me this year because it was just like being in a lesson with our teacher in the building. Everyone had to follow class expectations, respect each other, and follow the routines. I'm usually interested in the lesson, so I use new skills for taking good notes for each class and to always ask for clarification or help if I need it. The main thing that went well for me during remote learning was being more focused. At school, it was harder to focus because there were so many things happening at once with so many people in the room. While learning at home, you're in the comfort of your own workspace. Focusing on your class without multiple things going on. I feel remote learning meant much of the sixth grader might have while transitioning to middle school. It taught me about many new things and about the subjects and helped me learn about myself as a student. Thank you.
Way to go, Gabby! Wait till I see your grandmother. Good job, good job. Okay, who's next on the hit parade here?
I am next. Thank you, Gabby. Good evening. My name is Evelyn Bouya, and I am an 8th grader at Zanetti Montessori School. Currently, 8th graders are participating in fully remote learning. For most people, the greatest difference between remote learning and in-person learning is that, with remote learning, students and staff have a lesser connection than they did during in-person school. However, at Zanetti, our connection has only grown stronger from working at home. Our organization, perseverance, structure, kindness, and patience have portrayed the great strength of this school. I am greatly inspired by the Zanetti community and how we've managed to stay so close, even though we're learning remotely. We do independent work as well as group activities and collaboration. And of course, we middle schoolers are comfortable with our peers and teachers, and we know that we can reach out for help whenever we need to. Middle school has access to our assignments, due dates, and more with online educational resources like Unified Classroom. Middle school teachers at Zanetti have been very specific about class agendas, objectives, and expectations. The computer programs that we use and their structures and organization provide us with access to everything we need to succeed. As a student who has attended Zanetti since the age of 3, I can proudly say that Zanetti has taught me a plethora of life lessons that I can carry on into my future. With remote learning, 8th graders have had independence that we haven't really had before. The ability to successfully work independently is an amazing and vital skill to obtain. We have also learned about how important it is that we are responsible for our actions. Zanetti has taught us how to stay focused, organized, and hold ourselves accountable for our work and actions. The amazing life lessons that Zanetti has taught us, especially during remote learning, are extremely valuable to us now, and they will remain valuable as we journey to high school and beyond. Thank you.
Way to go, Evelyn. Good job. Boy, Zanetti's on a roll tonight. Who's next on the hit parade?
Thank you, Evelyn. Hi, my name is Ava Moore, and I'm an 8th grader at Zanetti Montessori. I'm going to be talking about the successes of online learning and valuable life lessons we've learned. While working online, there's been much gain in leadership and independence in almost every single student, with students leading advisory classes, their presenting skills, group collaborations, and group teaching classes. And there has been much growth in every single person. While working fully online, there have been some challenges, but working through challenges is one of the many responsibilities we have come to learn. I've learned that not everything will go the way it is planned, but you can still make the best out of every situation. This is what we like to call perseverance. Perseverance is something we are taught here at Zanetti. No matter how big the problem, we can always work it through. With prepared class plans and clear expectations, as well as instructions and assignments from Zanetti teachers, it has made working online 100% easier and better. With prepared plans, it allows me, along with every other student, to better our time when completing assignments. Time management is something I quite struggle with, but working online has made this impossible mission 10 times more possible. Perseverance, as well as time management, independence, and every other life lessons Zanetti has taught us, both in school and online, have been of much value and will continue to be throughout our high school careers and as we go on from there. Thank you.
Way to go, Ava. Good job. Okay, who's next on the hit parade?
I'm next.
And who is that?
Rylan Murphy.
All right, Rylan, go get him.
Okay. I'm Rylan Murphy. Colin and I are 6th graders at Zanetti who returned to the building for in-person learning this week. I feel like going back to school went well. There are all the necessary precautions and more. I liked how everything was ready and organized by the time the students got there this week. Not only was everything well planned out, but there was also lots of signs and things like special blue tape placed every 6 feet in the halls to help remind people of social distancing. The other great part about going back was getting to see all my friends. I feel like we got a lucky group because I was already friends with all the kids in my cohort from before and working online together. It was nice to see them and hang out for a little bit.
I'm Colin
Well,
Hey.
Wait a minute, I think you got a proud dad there as school committeeman, attorney Peter Murphy there. So good job. Good. Hey, listen, we like your father's haircut too. It looks good. Attorney Murphy, would you like to say anything? I know it's a special moment. Would you like to say anything, Attorney Murphy?
What? I'm sorry, Mayor?
Would you like to say anything? I know it's.
Oh, no. I was just trying to get we wanted to watch Rylan when, Claire and Liam did the Speak Out, and it's great to see Rylan. Everything's, glad to see everybody back in school, Mayor. Thanks very much.
I know it's a special moment. Great job, Rylan.
Thank you.
Okay, and Colin Shea, you're like the cleanup hitter. You're bringing it up now for Zanetti. You're on.
Hi, I'm Colin Shea. There was a lot of good things about going back to school. I like that I got to see my friends and we got to talk. We stayed apart from each other, but we got to talk and we kept our distance while doing it. We had scheduled times to stretch out and move at our desk. We kept our masks on unless we were eating or as a mask break. I noticed that classes got new Promethean boards. It was helpful because we put our team meetings on the board during class, and we could see the kids at home and they could see us because it was a webcam. It seemed like the people in the class got more work done than they normally did because there was not as much background noise. Being in school helped me be less distracted because there was not as much things going on around me in my house.
Very good, Colin. Thank you. Way to go, Zanetti. Okay, last but not least, South End Middle School is in the house and is supported by their principal, Cheryl DeSpirit, and Daisy Roman Davis, assistant principal, who I see on there, and they have Leah Burton. So I don't know if assistant principal, Daisy, you want to open up, or Principal DeSpirit wants to open up?
So Cheryl Disper's not here. She sends her regrets, but I am here, and I'm super excited to have Aaliyah Burton share as one of our 8th grade students.
Okay, Aaliyah, you're on.
My name is Aaliyah Burton, and I go to South End Middle School. I'm in 8th grade this year, which means this is my last year at South End. Soon I will be going back to the building. I'm excited for this because I'll be able to see my classmates in person, and I can finally get out the house every day after a whole year. Our teachers have been telling us about how to stay safe around school. We have new stickers in the hallway that mark 6 feet distance in our desk, 6 feet away from each other. One thing that will be weird for me when we go back is not changing our classes. Instead, our teachers will be rotating. We are still trying to have our best fun this year. So we have a virtual bingo game and whole level advisories once a month where we win prizes too. Something new this year at South End was we had virtual Spirit Week. My favorite day was Anime Day because students were able to put a background of their favorite anime, and the different talks about anime with each kid was fun. During this time of remote learning, I've had used Unified Classroom and learned how ClassPage works. The teachers have also found websites for us to explore, like my personal favorite, Bookit. We also use Get Epic, iReady, Nearpod, and more. The 8th grade is trying something new that our teachers came up with called Class of Clash. Our advisory groups picked a team mascots based on colors and animals. My team is Black Bears. In order to get points, we have to do our ready, have great attendance, and some challenges that built grit. We have only been playing for 3 weeks, but my favorite grit challenges has been the riddles so far, because it was mostly riddles that we've done before. We will have a whole 8th grade advisory next Friday, April 16th, and see which team won the first round of the game.
Nice job, Aaliyah. Thank you. And to all the student representatives, you did a fantastic job. We always look forward to hearing from you. Vice Chair Collins is going to make a statement how you can continue to watch this. Vice Chair Collins?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Yeah. Trying to make sure that we don't overload our bandwidth. We would ask the students to either continue watching through the Stream app or leave the Zoom and watch on channel 17. We want to make sure that our technology doesn't get any glitches for this meeting, so we can, and the staff, thank you all for being here with the students as well. We'd really love you to continue to watch, but if you could do it by watching it on television or streaming, that would be very helpful.
Thank you, Vice Chair Collins. That will conclude the student representative speak out, and good health, everybody, and continued success. We'll be back in about 5 to 7 minutes. Great job. Brendan, are we ready to go?
Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna gavel us in then. Let me make sure everybody gets on here. We'll call the meeting to order. Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Ms. Naylor?
Yeah, present.
Attorney Murphy?
Present.
Ms. Hurst?
Present.
Ms. Gresham?
Present.
Ms. Perez?
Present.
Mr. Collins?
Here.
Mayor Sarno?
President, if we could all please rise for a moment of silence, and I'd like to dedicate it to former school committee member and my chief of staff, Tom Ash's mom, Mary Ash, who just recently passed away, and then we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much, everyone. We just had a great student speak out, and I hope everybody and their family are feeling well as we continue to move forward and get back into school. Approval of the minutes, approve the school committee meeting minutes for March 25th, 2021 regular session and April 1st, 2021 report of the Chapter 74 Advisory Committee meeting, which is Putnam Vocational Technical Academy, which was a fantastic meeting. Any questions or comments? Okay, hearing none, is there a motion to accept?
So moved.
Motion by Vice Chair Collins. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Second by Ms. Naylor. Roll call vote is required. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Ms. Naylor?
Yeah.
Attorney Murphy?
Yes.
Ms. Hurst?
Yes.
Ms. Gresham?
Yes.
Ms. Perez?
Yes.
Mr. Collins?
Yes.
Mayor Sarno?
Yes, four to sufficient votes, matter passes. Thank you very much. We'll now move to section 3, which is voting items. A is to approve the Springfield School Committee entering into an interdepartmental agreement with the Springfield Police Department regarding access to school security surveillance cameras. Superintendent Ward, please.
Thank you, Mayor. As with a lot of our work, the work on this was done in our subcommittees, and we had a joint subcommittee on this, legislative and contract headed by Maria, and building and maintenance by Chris Collins. Attorney Phelps is going to take us through the agreement, and then we'll open it up for questions. Attorney Phelps, we have other staff on if there's any questions also.
Attorney Phelps.
Thank you.
Mindy, you're breaking up, Mindy.
I think she lost her sound.
No.
Attorney Phelps, you don't have any sound.
No sound. No sound. Well, while we wait for the correction again, I want to thank Ms. Perez and Vice Chair Collins for your work on this. This is an important component as we continue to keep our students safe and sound, and collaboration is much appreciated.
And there was lots of collaboration with the city's law department and the police department.
Yes.
It was really, unlike some of the times before where it might have been contentious, this was a much easier working environment. Everybody was on the same page. It went very well.
No. It's still not coming across, Mindy. Attorney Phelps, still not coming across. No. Something's wrong with the sound system. Staff, Paul, is that on our end or Attorney Phelps's end?
I'm sure it's on her.
I think it's probably on Attorney Phelps's end, but Mindy, you might try just signing out of the Zoom and signing back in. Sometimes that'll fix it.
Okay, let's give it a second. Thank you.
Mayor, perhaps we could move on to item B.
She's connecting.
Oh, she's going in.
No.
Oh, she's muted this time.
You're
muted on your phone.
You're muted, Mindy. That's still not. All right, what we're gonna do then is to, with the school committee's indulgence, we'll go to, let's table this for a second now, and let's go to B, to approve the revised 2021-2022 school year calendar. Superintendent Warwick, please.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. We made a few revisions to the calendars as things have come up. And one thing that came up was I got a call from the election office. And earlier on, some years back, election day, we decided that we'd have a PD day so they could run the elections. It was a busier day. And that worked really well. And they called me and said, look, given the COVID situation and everything else, could we also do the primary day? So I worked with my staff, and we've put the PD days on primary day, which would be September 14th, and replaced the one in January. And that'll work out well for our PD situation. But even on primary day, not having the disruption of the elections going on will be it'll provide a better safety environment. But in light of COVID, it's a really good idea. So we built that into the calendar. That's the only change in this calendar. And I do appreciate the election office reaching out to me on that.
Well, Commissioner Iola Gladys does a great job. And of course, we already made the adjustment to suggestion Ms. Naylor and Ms. Hurst on Juneteenth, which has already been reflected priorly. So I don't know if there's any questions or comments on this issue. Okay, hearing none, is there a motion on the floor to accept?
So moved.
Motion by Vice Chair Collins. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Second by Ms. Naylor. You're quicker because you're here than on the. Sorry about that. Roll call vote is required. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Ms. Naylor,
Yeah.
Attorney Murphy,
Yes.
Ms. Hurst,
Yes.
Ms. Gresham,
Yes.
Ms. Perez,
Yes.
Mr. Collins,
Yes.
Mayor Sarno.
Yes, more than sufficient vote, this matter passes. Let's see if we can jump back to A, and if Attorney Phelps, if the audio is working now.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, perfect. Yes, okay.
Okay.
You should copy, that's copyright infringement. Can you hear me now? Okay. Go ahead, Attorney Phelps.
All right. So
Oh.
can you hear me now? Yes, you can. All right.
Yeah. Perfect.
So what is before you is an interdepartmental agreement between the Springfield Public Schools and the Springfield Police Department. This really came out of the fact that technology has improved tremendously, and the police department has agreements with many businesses to access their surveillance equipment in real time. And with a number of Springfield Public School buildings, the request was from the police department that it made some sense to consider allowing the police department to have access to the many surveillance cameras on the exterior of Springfield Public School buildings, and also on narrow occasions for interior surveillance cameras. And I'll take you through the agreement because we felt we needed some guardrails on this permission to access, and I think this agreement provides those guardrails. If you recall, there was the homicide near the DeBerry School, and the police department accessed the exterior cameras on that building and was able to apprehend the suspect. That happened because they woke up Bill Baker in the middle of the night to go and allow the police department to have access to those cameras. So this will allow more of a real-time police effort. The agreement on paragraph 1 allows the police department to have access at any time to the exterior cameras, but it limits who has that access. And it limits it to the members of the Springfield Police Department real-time crime analysis staff, the Springfield Police Department video analyst, and officers and supervisors responding to or in good faith investigating an incident depicted on the images and recordings. and such other officers as is designated by the police commissioner. So there has to be a bona fide law enforcement need, either in real time or as part of an investigation, in order to access the exterior cameras. I'll stop there in case there's any questions regarding that portion before I turn to the interior cameras.
So
I have a
questions? Ms. Gresham?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Attorney Phelps, so the exterior cameras will be on at all time?
They are on at all time.
24/7?
Yes.
Okay, all right. And can you explain real time a little bit?
Sure. So if there is, the police department is investigating a shooting and they know that the shooter ran up by DeBerry School or Lincoln School, pick whichever school, they can then access those cameras to try and see if they can catch that individual running past the building.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gresham. Any other questions or comments?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I have a question.
Ms. Hurst.
Attorney Phelps, what's the current protocol that's used for accessing the cameras? And who provides that permission now?
So I'll turn that over to Bill Baker with regards to examples as to how it works presently.
Director, Mr. Baker, Bill?
Yep, thanks, Mindy. Yeah, currently, I'll get contacted by the Springfield Police Department if something has occurred, and I'll typically meet with the either the real-time crime analysis unit or the video analyst, and they'll give me the parameters that they're looking for. We'll look through, and we'll usually view the video together, and then if it's necessary, we'll provide a copy.
And so with this current contract or current practice, that means that they will have access to it and they won't have to seek assistance from us to view it?
Well, they could view it. We still retain the rights to have to produce it. So they can only view it. They cannot share it. It still follows the protocols that we've had long established.
So they can only view, they can't amend, edit, modify?
Record, no.
No. We're the only ones that are able to produce or burn it to a disk, so, you know, as they say, and then produce it like we do quite often.
Because we own the equipment, we own the video. It's just allowing access to it in real time for a specific law enforcement purpose.
Yeah, it's much appreciated because we have that real-time crime analysis division, which is 24/7. And, you know, God forbid something is to occur, that will help the officers, he or she, that are responding to immediately try to solve that issue and move on it very, very, very quickly.
So what's interesting, and one of the guardrails that's in the system, and it's referenced on the second page, is that the police department uses the Motorola platform to connect to the Springfield Public Schools cameras. That is user name and password required to log in order to access a security camera. And a record is made of the exact time, who enters, how long they're viewing. So there is a record and a check of who's using it and for what purpose. And a log is kept.
Thank you, Attorney Phil. Any other questions on this first part of the agreement?
So, Mr. Mayor, I have a question, Mr. Mayor. So someone is monitoring that all the time? Or just?
Our crime analysis? No, not that. Our crime analysis division that's monitoring where we have the cameras around the city. This would be, say, and Attorney Phelps can correct me, a call comes in that something's happening near one of our schools. So automatically say, okay, we can zoom in there to find out exactly, so hopefully maybe you can prevent it, and or if something has occurred, to move quickly to make an arrest quell that situation. Mindy, I don't know if you want to explain a little bit more on that.
Yeah, so there's a non-school matter. There's a domestic incident going on behind Lincoln School. And the police know that it's occurring, would like to get a better view. If they put a corridor around the two individuals or three individuals fighting, they can then access the camera and get a better angle on what's happening and will enhance their response to the situation. But if they do access it, there's a log, who's accessing it, how long they're there for. So there's a check on, you know, finding out that, making certain that these are being used for specific law enforcement purposes.
They're being accessed as needed, not like they're perusing the schools. It's when the occasion presents itself.
I'm glad you clarified that. I think that's where Barbara and Denise were getting that. When needed, you know, a call comes that there's something going on near a school area. Of course, we want to make sure our kids are protected, say it's during the school hours, but sometimes things happen after. So only when needed, just to clarify.
All right.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Ms. Gresham, then I'll go to Ms. Naylor.
I'm all set. Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Naylor, sorry.
My question is around the FERPA. Are we gonna notify parents that their kids may be under surveillance?
So there's
Attorney Phelps, can you clarify that?
Sure. Just to clarify again, there is no surveillance. It is when there is a specific law enforcement purpose. So there's nobody just looking at the cameras with regards to exterior cameras or interior cameras. That having been said, FERPA protects student records. FERPA has an exemption for law enforcement uses, and law enforcement use does not require parental approval. If provided, it's for a law enforcement purpose. Now, if the law enforcement purpose then requires a copy of the video to give to the district attorney's office for use with a victim for identification, they must notify the parents in that instance of any student whose image is on the camera. The police department has the ability, as I understand it, to redact or blur faces. We don't have that ability in the Springfield Public Schools Video Department, which is Office of Safety and Security. But the police department would have to do that in order to reproduce it. And again, it would have to be through us. We would have to give the video to the police department and they would have to redact it in order to we would be notifying the parents in that instance. If there's inability.
I asked that question because I can understand the exterior piece, but the interior piece really concerns me because I think they should have to ask for permission to know what's happening inside the school. What's happening outside as relates to the community is different, but I'm really concerned about the aspect of them being able to go in real time and take information on what's happening in our schools without our notice until whenever we check the system.
Okay,
I'm really concerned about that.
So let's move to the, sure.
May I ask one more question, Mr. Mayor, before Attorney Phelps? So two things. Attorney Phelps, what's the impetus to this change? Why is this changing now? And then the second thing is the logs that you talked about, who has access to those logs? Who's monitoring those logs? Do we have access to them?
It's the police department's logs. I'm certain that it's a public record.
So like when you were saying that it would be documented, like who goes in, how long they're there, those are police logs, not Springfield Public School logs.
Correct, because it's the police accessing our cameras through a technology platform, which is user protected, and it requires the individual ID of the police department's real-time crime analysis staff. So it's limited to that staff, the video analyst, or an officer or supervisor specifically designated by the police commissioner to access. So somebody who doesn't fit any of those categories could not access the videos.
And so when we're saying that there are logs that are monitoring or keeping track to who's accessing them, that is being monitored by the Springfield PD, not by us.
Correct.
And the impetus why this is happening, why it's being made?
School shootings.
For public safety reasons.
The impetus, the original request came, we just want to have full access to your cameras. And we pushed back saying, wait a minute, there's got to be rules, parameters, there's got to be notification, we've got to know. The impetus to spell this all out in the contract came from the school department saying, no, we don't want you having unfettered access to any of the cameras in the school buildings.
And also, knock on wood, unfortunately, other communities have suffered mass school shootings. Knock on wood, we never had that situation. So anything, and I can understand School Committee Woman Hurst and Naylor asked, interior, and that would really only come about if there was a call coming in that police were required something serious was going on. The exterior was more that we've done this with a number of businesses throughout the area too, to hopefully at times prevent something negative from happening, or if something does happen, we're able to plug in right away and get the perpetrator off the street. So, but on the interior, I think Attorney Phelps can go more into it. It's much more specific, or Director Baker, Mr. Baker, much more specific. Something would have to trigger part of that mechanism for why, and I hope we never have to go through it, like other schools have, unfortunately. But I know Attorney Phelps or Director Baker, if you can maybe expound on that a bit for Ms. Hurst and Ms. Naylor and the rest of the school committee. On the interior, exterior, we've already done that.
I'll speak to the interiors. I think it's so important to have access to the interior cameras. Like has been said, we've been very fortunate. We put a lot of effort into not presenting the occasion for things to happen in our schools, and we work really hard at that, and we've been really fortunate. There's a lot of people involved in it. But in the event that something were to happen, I mean, this would be, life-saving. It would be game-changing. That's with kids in the school. We're locking down. We have access to our hallways. We're not filming classrooms. We're not doing any of the educational areas. It's the common areas in the schools. And I think we'd be doing a disservice if we didn't utilize these with the proper guidelines like we have in here for the purpose that they're being used for. Then the second reason is that after hours or off days, we have the fire department that's responding to Central High School for something going on. The dispatch center would be able to access those cameras to see what's going on, to see, is there smoke in a hallway, or are we walking into something that we're not prepared for? So I think there's a whole lot of reasons why it makes perfect sense to give them access. And again, I agree with the guidelines, so we make sure that it's not abused.
Just the other thing I'd like to say too, a lot of our schools, we make them into community type centers, and we open them up to activities after hours or in the evening, and if something was to happen at that point in time. But interior, again, is much more specific in order to gain that. That would really be a call that's coming into the police department, that God forbid something serious is going on in one of our schools. We've been, very lucky. We've really hardened our facilities on that. So I don't know if Attorney Phelps wants to add anything more on interior.
Sure, I can go through the agreement. The paragraph 2 details the instances in which access to interior cameras may be permitted. And it's indicated that it's only by the real-time crime analysis staff, the video analyst, and officers specifically designated by the commissioner and responding to an incident believed to be depicted on the inside of a school building. And paragraph A says solely for the purpose of responding to a public safety emergency situation. So if you notice, those words are different than a law enforcement investigation or law enforcement purpose, which is what the language we used for exterior cameras. We made made it more narrow with regards to interior cameras, that it has to be a public safety emergency situation, such as Mr. Baker just indicated with the fire department or with a active shooter in a school building. And I think, you know, if I could just move on to paragraph B then, unless there's questions regarding the public safety emergency instance.
I do.
Ms. Naylor?
So if right now, before this would be in place, there was an emergency happening out of school, then they would still be able to access the cameras, but they would have to call Bill Baker or somebody else to get access? Or are you saying they would not have access at all?
So they don't have access at all at this point.
That, and time, you know, that could end up not saving lives or anything.
Now,
Again,
could you access it in real time, Bill?
Yes.
Can I ask a question? Who else besides Bill has access in real time? What other Springfield Public School employees or who else out of Bill Baker's office has access to it?
In our office, the 3 staff in our office have access to it. And then school-based personnel have access to their own video. The principal at a high school would have that access to that school's video only. But it's our office that controls that.
Thank you, Mr. Baker. I know Ms. Naylor, Ms. Hurst, anything else on that?
So, Attorney Phelps, and I understood, or you had clarified or answered Ms. Naylor's question about FERPA. So with the cameras in the interior and in common spaces, we don't have an obligation to inform parents that, or even staff, that these videos are now being accessed, or that the local police department now has access to them. Like, we don't have to, it doesn't violate any sort of confidentiality.
So public safety emergency.
And maybe I'm not asking it the right way, but currently they know that there are cameras in the building. But if this passes, this means that now the police have access to the cameras in the building. Do we not have to inform parents that that's the case?
So there already is a declaration to the parents in the student handbook, as well as, you know, I believe every building also indicates that to the parent at the beginning of the school year. The Department of Education has guidance, and I prepared a memo for the school committee. And the question, the Department of Education's guidance is, videos are not education records, and FERPA would not prohibit the law enforcement unit of an educational agency or institution from disclosing the videos to the police for a law enforcement purpose. So again, nobody can just, you know, there's a check on who's accessing it and how long they're there, and obviously there has to be a justification for the purpose. But there is a broad exemption in FERPA for law enforcement purposes. Now, if in fact it's not going to be used for law enforcement purposes, let's say there's a video that's accessed, and again, it's not a permanent image. The police department is just viewing it. But should they then request that that video be captured on a disc, if there are other students on there, they would be, first of all, redacted or blurred out for their law enforcement purpose by the police department. But if that video was then going to be used for discipline purpose, by the school, it does then become a student record, and there would have to be notification to the police department. The Department of Education says if the videos are education records, they may not turn over the videos to the police upon request without first either having obtained the written consent of the parent or eligible student, that is a student over the age of 18, or determine that the conditions are warranting an exception. That is a public safety emergency. So there is that, again, guardrail if in fact it's being used for as an education record, which is discipline within the school building itself.
Thank you, Attorney Phelps. Any other questions or comments?
Mayor, I
Okay,
can go.
okay, hearing.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, Ms. Attorney Phelps.
Go on to items B and C under the interior cameras. And that is if there's a non-emergency, non-public safety emergency law enforcement investigation. If this is part B, Springfield Police Department must receive prior written approval from the Office of Safety and Security to view those interior images. And again, we retain the right to reproduce any images to the police department because it is our cameras and our video. And then C is a provision whereby interior images can be assessed with prior written approval from this Office of Safety and Security for law enforcement training purposes. That is, if after school hours, the police department wants to stage an active shooter drill for their officers with prior written approval, and that goes forward, they can then access the cameras for training purposes to review how their officers respond to that drill. In no event, paragraph 4 indicates that no video or still images recordings shall be used for any purpose other than law enforcement. And in no event will still images or videos of students be released to a third party without complying with FERPA and Massachusetts regulation regarding student privacy.
Thank you, Ms. Phelps. I don't know if there's any questions or comments. I want to thank School Committee Woman Maria Perez and Vice Chair Chris Collins. I know a lot of the nuts and bolts is done. The Superintendent Warwick indication. Our subcommittees, many hours of work put in. I don't know if there's any other questions, if Ms. Perez or Vice Chair Collins would like to comment before we move for a vote.
Well, Mayor, if I could, developing this has been going on for over a year. And when the request was first made, we would have had no idea who, when, where, or why they were ever going to access cameras, or there were no protections, no guardrails, just give us access to the cameras. And clearly, all of us, I'm sure, have the feeling that, whoa, wait a minute, that's not something that we're willing to see happen. And so a document had to be developed where we would know that it was only going to be under an emergency, and then we would still know who did it, who got in to access the camera, because they have to log in, and there'd be a record of who did it and when. So it's a long way from the original request, and I think it's gotten to the, I believe it's at the point where we've got the protections we need to make sure, and we did spend time asking the police department to make sure that if they have the ability to, we've seen videos where they black out faces, where they redact faces, so that if this is used for anything other than the immediate investigation, that would be able to happen to protect people's privacy, both staff and students.
Thank you, Vice Chair. I know, Attorney Phelps, please, vote of discretion.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to reiterate or piggyback on what Mr. Collins said. We really pushed back to put some guardrails on this proposal, and it went up to the Real Crime Division and watched the cameras and saw the setup and how it is a very much of a locked unit at the police department. Only certain people can get into the room where the cameras are. But it was also amazing that the number of businesses in the city of Springfield who have already given their passwords and whatever it is that allows them to connect to the computers, because the businesses have recognized that there's a real need for public safety and the ability in real time to investigate and look at something that's happening. So, thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Thank you. Well, Ms. Gresham had a question. I'll go to you, Ms. Hurst.
Yes, I don't really have a question. I just have a comment. I don't understand what prompted this. And when I see the word surveillance, I feel like somebody's constantly there watching and viewing this camera.
No.
That's what I
No.
guess surveillance. That's what I.
Nobody's mentioning surveillance at all. This is not surveillance. This is on the exterior has been explained. The interior would have to be a public safety emergency. God forbid we have that with a fire or police, but time could be of the essence in saving lives or saving structure. With Attorney Phelps and Vice Chair Collins and Ms. Perez, the checks and balances are in there. I think what also brought this about too is that, God forbid, we've seen other school systems around the country had to deal with tragic situations. And when you have all the information officer he or she can get going in, and I hope it never happens here, going into a situation is going to be beneficial in quelling that situation and saving lives on it. So that's the interior part, which many more, as Attorney Phelps says, guardrails to the interior part. But I don't know if Ms. Perez, if you'd like to comment coming out of your subcommittee too. You're mute, Maria. You're mute.
I just want to say that we went into an intensive discussion and I had so many questions. One of the issues that I find in the past, and I experienced that, I was involved in a case when I was a social worker. Looking at the guidelines, we, the school department, we didn't have guards in place, and the Department of Social Justice could come in and ask for records. I feel confident that now we have policies in place and we control the decision making. In the past, the Department of Social Justice will come in and make a request or an attorney, and we didn't have these policies in place. And that was a tough discussion that we had in the committee, because we need to be the ones. I mean, as a parent that have children in our schools, I hear the concern, but at the same time, we was just so open that only a paper subpoena served and records was released. I feel that now we have some guards and some policies and procedure, and we able to identify staff from the school department and make it this responsible. How do we go about when it comes to the Department of Social Justice?
We don't have access. Oh.
Hold on, Ms. Hurst, I'm sorry.
Oh, okay, thank you, Mayor. So I'm sorry, because I feel like I heard Vice Chairman Collins say this and Maria just say this. So do we, I'm trying to gauge how transparent this process is. So Attorney Phelps, what I heard you say was that the only people that had access to monitor who had access was the Springfield PD, right? Not us? Because then I heard Chairman Collins and Maria talk about that now we had provisions in place and we could monitor and we push back. Who has access to these logs?
So,
Attorney Phelps.
Sure. Paragraph 3 of the proposed interdepartmental agreement indicates that the Springfield Police Department utilizes the Motorola platform to connect to the SPS cameras. The Motorola platform requires a username and password to log in order to access a security camera. So that is the real-time crime analyst department. those individuals have a password in which they would then be using to log in to a Springfield camera. That log is maintained and kept by the Springfield Police Department.
And we would only have access to that information if we made a public information request.
Oh, no, we would have an interdepartmental agreement that would allow us to have that information. Because the police department is restricted to only accessing our cameras for a bona fide law enforcement or public safety purpose. So because we are contractual, we have a contract with them, an agreement with them, we have the ability to request that login information.
To request, but could our request be denied?
I suppose. I can't imagine, given the fact that I suppose if it's denied, we'd certainly say that's a breach of contract and the agreement would be in breach and it would be over until we figured it out. But, you know, we're partners in this.
So if we're partners, why do we have to request it? Why can't it just be that it's
available?
It's available.
Right.
Like, why wouldn't we just have access to who accessed the cameras?
I suppose we could request that the log be given to us on a monthly basis.
I'm sure, I mean, this was done in the spirit of mutual cooperation to, again, prevent any type of negativity happen, or if something happened, to solve that issue, you know, very quickly. And again, exterior, if something occurred, many times whether it's off our interior, God forbid, is that, again, we've never had a situation, I'm knocking on wood, I hope we don't. God forbid there was you know, we've really hardened our targets in our schools with all the security we have. If there was something to occur, time would be of the essence, whether fire is responding and or police to save lives or save structures. But this is not done to do any surveillance at all. This is a specific exterior is law enforcement, Paul. Interior is a public safety emergency. Am I correct, Attorney Phelps?
Yeah, and you know, a record is made of the camera's exact location and of the video stream accessing the event. So there's, you know, it started at, you know, 10:13 and ended at 10:22. That's all. The log has a lot of information in it. I'm certain that log can be, you know, produced on a regular basis for the Springfield Public School cameras.
And I'm sure that, go ahead, Ms. Hurst. I'm sure defense.
I have a question as well.
Okay, Ms. Hurst.
When Maria talked about the Department of Justice, currently, if the Department of Justice, if this particular interdepartmental agreement passed, if the Department of Justice made a request of our surveillance or video camera recordings, interior or exterior, would we produce it? And would we produce it? And now with this interdepartmental agreement, would we have to somehow, would it affect whether or not the police released it, the Springfield PD released it? Like, would we be held
accountable
to deferring to them as to whether or not they would release it?
So let me just respond to that in that the police department does not keep the video. It's just viewing it. So they would have nothing to reproduce to the department.
Okay.
The request would come to the Springfield Public Schools if it was preserved, which, you know, the cameras are taped over. Bill, you know how long it lasts for many cameras.
Yeah, we're probably looking at a 3-week window that we can archive video, and then it's gone.
But the Department of Justice has broad powers, and we would certainly deal with their request at that time.
Just a point of information, Mr. Mayor, can we return to the first page, paragraph A, under 2, and it says that the police department can access solely for the purpose of responding to public safety emergency situation. In such public safety emergency situation, the SPD supervisor responsible for coordinating the SPD response shall, as soon as practicable, notice the SPS safety and security that the SPD has access to surveillance cameras. So every time they access an interior camera, Bill's office is going to be notified that it happened. So we will get a notification from the police. I knew we had addressed that. I just needed to go back and see where it was. It's right in that very beginning. They have to notify us. PD has to notify us if they've accessed an interior camera in the schools. They have to notify Bill.
Thank you for clarifying that. I know Ms. Naylor had a question.
I did. So when we look at question, the number 3 on that section, and it talks about the username and password, login information, is that an individualized password and username for whomever has access to it, or is it a general password and username for whoever is accessing on that end?
It's an individual
And then I
password.
have
If I may just respond to that question.
Yes.
It's an individual password and username. So, and again, limited to the real-time crime unit. So it's a small group of people that individually each has a username and password.
So it would be able to decipher he or she that needed access for public safety situation.
Yes. And so my comment is, I understand what the reasoning is for this. That I have no issue with. I guess when I think about having surveillance cameras in a facility, right? And I go into a public place, they have a sign up and it tells me that you are under surveillance, and I make a choice if I want to go into that building knowing that it's under surveillance. However, our kids have no choice if they're going to go to school. Public school is a mandate, they have to go. So that means they're therefore required to be surveilled under our camera system. Now, I get that they have to make a request if they want to access this information, but I feel like still, even after listening to all of this clarification, that there's still a difference in the internal and the external uses or needs for the police to access our buildings. I feel like more often they're going to need to access it externally. That makes a lot of sense. But internally, I am still very concerned about our parents not having the being able to approve of or give permission of, knowing at least, or acknowledging that they know that this is a real thing that could happen. Now, it could save their lives eventually, but to not be aware, it really bothers me.
Well, Attorney Phelps, can you clarify again in the student handbook, parents, that I believe there is a caveat in there indicating that there are cameras in our schools, and parents are aware of that?
Yeah, so and every school that has cameras has a posting, so the sign. So you do have both a visual as well as the notice. And Bill, how long have cameras been in the buildings? Decades?
Yeah, let's say at least 15 years.
I just want to clarify, that's not the part that I'm concerned about. I agree parents are aware that there are cameras in there. I think it's the fact that we're changing the policy and now saying that in the event that the police feel they need access, right? Because it does say emergency, but there also is a little vague language here where if it's necessary, and I'll find the exact word that I found earlier, that said that basically if they feel it's necessary that they need to access the cameras, that they can do so. And that's understandable if they think there's an emergency. But again, kids have to go to school. I make a choice if I want to go to the restaurant knowing that it's under surveillance. So that is my concern when we talk about internal versus external.
Could I say something, please? Yeah, my concern is that we have the camera. My concern is that we don't have a contract that we could make the police department or the Department of Social Justice. Again, I went through a case that the way they utilized the information was because of lack of a memorandum of agreement with provisions. And then we were left in the open, and we provided, which I was against certain things, but because, and I experienced this myself, but because we didn't have no provisions or no memorandum of agreement, it was kind of open. Let's say we do not agree with this contract, it's still going to be as decade open, and that's my concern, protecting the children and the parents and the family, that there'll be some provisions there when it comes to, from the Department of Justice, because as it stands right now, there's no provisions of how to control in the event that something happens. So, that was in detail discussed in the subcommittee.
I mean, God forbid something was to happen. To at that point in time say, we have to get a hold of the parent and or parents and or guardians as that situation is unfolding would be untenable. In other words, where an officer or firefighter could stop some type of situation with this recording, seeing what's going on, how to access who's involved in it, who's doing, how to quell it, to say, well, wait a minute, you have to get a hold of that parent and or guardian. There could be one student, there could be 25 students there. That would inhibit their response time, and in turn could end up not saving lives or saving structure. So I mean, I think again, it's pretty narrow about where they can, when they go interior, there's a call that is triggering, hey, there's a situation, emergency situation going on here. I understand, I respect the checks and balances, but unless I'm reading it wrong, a couple school committee members say, well, the parents have to be notified.
No, that's not what I mean, sir. I mean in general. So I mean that if we decided to approve this, that we would at least have some type of acknowledgement to parents to just make them aware that this could happen. Not that it's always going to happen, but at least notify them that this is a possibility.
That's fine.
That's all I'm saying, not in the midst of an emergency.
I'm glad they put it, that's clarify. I'm not saying, but I'm saying is, are we going that narrow?
That's fine with me.
Well, but to
Discussion?
your, go ahead, Ms. Gresham.
That's okay. I'm just going to say that, you know, I have a difficult time understanding the transparency of this, because recent incidents happened. There was a difficult time getting the camera released. It was very difficult to get that camera video released. So my question is, I don't believe there's going to be transparency with this situation. I really don't.
Yeah, Attorney Murphy, you haven't spoken on the issue. Go ahead.
Thank you. Thanks very much. I have a couple of questions and requests for clarifications, if I might. So, Bill, you're on there. Yeah. So these, just so I'm understanding this, the police department at Pearl Street can access internal and external videos of our school cameras.
That's what's being proposed here. They cannot at this point.
Okay. So they at this point, they have no access whatsoever to external or internal videos?
Nothing.
Okay. And I think one of the things that I'm hearing and the concerns is should we allow, well, I mean, and there are very legitimate reasons to allow law enforcement. And by the way, they are public buildings and side, you know, most of the external cameras are sidewalks, public places. These are not private locations. We're not talking about bathrooms or locker rooms or anything like that. We're talking about hallways and sidewalks and roadways and that kind of thing that could potentially help solve crimes. Is that fair to say?
Yes. Absolutely.
In certain instances. Okay. And then it sounds like some of the concerns are about who has access to the video, to the cameras, and how would we get notice as to who has access. So I guess that's the concern, right? So could you just address that for a moment?
Yeah, I'll just piggyback on what Melinda said earlier about if they access the internal cameras, they would have to make that phone call to let us know that they're accessing it because there is an incident that they needed to access it for.
Okay, so which leads me to the next question.
Mhm.
So the Department of Motor Vehicles, RMV, Corey, when you access a document that or a video, whatever it may be, you have to put in an ID number and they know who is accessing it. Is this a similar way
Yes.
to monitor people who are accessing this information? Like
There's a login. Yeah, there's a login for every user. So if you are accessing the video, they would know it's Peter Murphy that accessed the video at this time. And
yes, thank you. And then so that information will be stored for all time? Or
it's stored. I mean, I would have to ask the IT people that, but I couldn't answer that for how long it's stored.
well, I mean, the video is obviously not stored for all time. We know that the video, whether it's external or internal, is only stored for 3 weeks, 4 weeks, give or take, right?
My understanding is that it would live on the computer much as my email does, and keeps it for, I have 3 years of running email I can look back on. The same type of thing, whereas the video might be gone, but the access that I've done, that's
Right,
how I
I
understand
get,
it.
yes, yeah, thank you, Bill. I understand the video itself
Will go,
may
yes.
not be saved, but the person who tries to access it will be saved in any particular instance. And I also, just to, with respect to Ms. Hurst, notifying parents, if there was a crime, so to speak, something that happened in one of our schools, and it was like almost a crime scene, we wouldn't necessarily want to release that information at least immediately, right? I mean, there has to be we have to have some law enforcement discretion, because it may be that there's an ongoing investigation, or that something happened, or they don't want to release people's names or witnesses or whatever the case may be. I mean, as awful as that may be, we do have to be careful around that, right? Around the release of information. That's a critical.
So any information that we do release, whether it's written or video, I'm sure that, I can speak for Melinda on this, that we spend a lot of time talking with them, and they put eyes on everything that we release to make sure that it complies with what needs to happen in the event that we have to release something.
All right, thank you very much, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Taylor. Any other questions or comments? Ms. Gresham?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you. You know what? I feel that this is a setup for our Black and brown students, mainly boys, prison, pipeline to prison. That's all I have to say.
Barbara, I got to make a comment now. Tonight, we're reporting that the graduation rate is nearly hovering almost to 80%. The dropout rate is the lowest ever here and in the state. We made a tremendous amount of progress on it. This is pertaining to a crime, a violent action that might have occurred, whether exterior of the school area, or God forbid, something happens in the school. I think any parent, he or she, will want to make sure, first of all, we can prevent something from happening, but if something did happen, that justice came about. So to use, of all times, with all due respect, to use that pipeline to prison, when we're nearing 80% graduation rate, when prior to administration coming in, we were hovering at 50%. We've had the highest increase in the state. Dropout rates are now, you're going to introduce the 2 or 3% from 12%. I don't, that is a falsehood, And again, this is looking to prevent any type of solve a crime that might have occurred outside of a school area, whether during hours or after hours, or God forbid, something active happening in the school and fire or police are called in there. The more information they have, the quicker they get that information, the more they can quell or stop that situation. That's all it's about. This is not about a setup for brown and black students at all.
With due respect, Mr. Mayor, that's how I feel.
Well, you're entitled to your opinion on it, but
Okay.
I think we're going to be putting a cross on it. So if somebody wants to call the question, call the question. You want to vote for it, vote for it. You don't want to vote for it, don't vote for it.
I know
we
that.
put across why this reason is done. Any other questions or comments?
Yeah, I'd just like to make a comment. We've worked long and hard on our safety and security department for the last 6 or 7 years with the support of the mayor, the superintendent, and the school committee to really get, I think, a cutting edge system in place to protect our students, staff, and our buildings. And the only intent of the cameras that exist today, they existed yesterday and they'll be there tomorrow, is just to protect everyone. Doesn't matter who they are or what they are. We'll still continue protecting everyone. And that's the only intent we have. All the boundaries we have to put in place, I certainly understand that and I think they're appropriate. But really because I've been pushing this for years, it's nothing more than to help save lives is the bottom line. My first call, when I get a call from a school, is to 911 or to have the school call 911. And I want them to have every tool in their toolbox. And if they're calling me to look at a camera and we're going third person, it doesn't make any sense. I think it's a life safety issue. That's how we view it. And I understand guidelines, absolutely. I'm on board with that 100% with whatever we need to do. But I think we need to understand that life safety is the bottom line for our whole initiative and our push for this. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
May I,
Thank you,
Mr. Mayor?
Ms. Hirsch, yes.
So, I'm eager to hear about the graduation rates and, it's commendable. And I understand what Bill Baker is saying about it being around safety. But we also cannot ignore, and I understand that you don't agree, but we can't ignore that there is a real phenomenon of the school to prison pipeline. And so because of that, we do have to be mindful about the policies that we're creating and making sure that we are looking at them from a variety of lenses. And that is truly one of them, considering the landscape around policing in schools. And so I think we have to, again, I urge us to stretch our thinking about how we can ensure that we're looking through an equity lens. I get the safety and I understand that, and it sounds like we've been always operating with safety as our paramount or our priority. And so I don't believe that this is the only way to continue to ensure safety, because we've been doing it all along.
Thank you, Ms. Hurst. Any other questions or comments?
Just one
Yeah,
comment.
I have
Again,
one. Mr. Mayor, I have one for Attorney Phelps. Sorry. I have one for Attorney Phelps. And the question is right now, how is the police operating right now? And if there was in the past, because I'm new in the school committee, in the past, a contract with the police when it comes to any crime or incident within the interior of the school?
So I'm going to defer to Bill, who works with the police department on those requests.
So if there's a crime on the interior of the school, how would they react to it, Maria? Is that the question? Or?
How do they obtain the information? What was the procedure?
So the police would request the information from our office, and we would go through the channels and we would produce it to the police department.
Was it a control department or was the police department as a whole? Is the question.
It's controlled based on what's happening in the schools. If we get a request on something that occurred in one of our schools or outside of one of our schools, we treat it on an individual basis.
So when you filter out that information, it could have gone to anyone. And with this, no, yeah, I just want to.
No, it's very specific how it's produced. The patrol officer in a district where a school is, he can't come in and ask for from 9 to 10 a.m. at a school just because he wants it. You know, there's a bona fide reason that would cause them to ask for that. And if there was a crime committed, those are the only times that we've produced a video, when there's a crime committed to the police department.
Thank you.
You got to remember, this is pertaining to a public safety emergency. So when you're saying on these requests, this would come after the fact that something has occurred that possibly could have been stopped or quelled. I mean, it is really narrowed down here when it comes to the interior. And again, I commend the work out of the agreement of checks and balances there in the exterior. So this is officers or firefighters rushing into a situation on a call, as Director Baker indicates, a 911 call has come and say, God forbid, we are experiencing a attack or an active shooter or an act of a crime or negativity going on right now. And this would help any emergency responders, and God forbid, including like an AMR or something, where they're directed to, where this is coming from on it. So, I mean, it's far from any type of surveillance at all, and there is a check and balance. And I'm hopeful, you know, we really harden our targets for the interior of the schools. At times, you know, around the area of the exterior of schools, things do happen. And but this does give it checks and balances of who can access it, and it would have to be Attorney Phelps. If you can clarify again, it's very narrow as far as going interior.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. The public safety emergency, which is on paragraph A for the interior cameras, the notice as soon as practicable to the Office of Safety and Security. So again, active shooter, a fire, whatever, access the camera, notice to the Safety and Security Office. And Bill has the scanner on, so it's probably a real-time notification that something's happening in the building. If it's not a public safety emergency, the agreement is set up that the police department cannot access the video without the prior written approval of the Office of Safety and Security. So that's the check on the non-public safety request to access and to look at. There's got to be something in writing. What is the purpose? What are you looking for? Is it because the kid was jumped in the hallway, doesn't know who jumped him from behind, has a broken neck because of it, can't identify anybody? The police department's investigating and saying, Bill, we want to look at the hallway where the kid was jumped at 10:15 a.m. It's all in writing. The guy, if Bill gives that officer in the real-time crime analysis permission, there's a log of going in, looking at the video at 10:15 a.m. in that hallway, and perhaps solving a crime and getting the suspect that broke the kid's neck. That's the purpose of paragraph B, but it does require, you know, thought and approval in writing so that there's a record of it.
And then we've also noted a number of times on the arrests have gone down significantly into lower double digits when there was, Danny, some years ago, there were as high as 300 or 400, and then suspect all down on proactive things. It's only the last resort. So you know, when the viewing public here, Attorney Phelps said, you know, a broken neck, this is if something occurred that's non-emergency, there's a procedure to follow if an investigation is being put forth. Any other questions or comments?
Yeah, I had the exact same concerns, I think, that Mrs. Gresham and Mrs. Hurst are trying to put out. I was very worried when they asked to get a look at our cameras of the potential that it might be used to investigate an individual, whether that be a student or a staff person. Because the request originally was so broad. I don't care whether it was staff or student. I don't want someone who's mad, who broke up with their wife, who happens to work at the school, be able, let me go monitor and see what they're doing. That's how broad it was when it first came forward. And I had the exact same fears you have, which is why it says it's only for public safety emergency.
It's not unabated, not unabated.
They can't be using it to develop a case against an individual person, especially when we're talking live time. The case that Attorney Phelps just described about if they believe that there was a crime and they're trying to investigate the aspects of it, that's viewing a tape. That's not viewing the live time. But I had those same fears, the potential for abuse, when this request came in well over a year ago, which is why we asked to have something very specific and why only for public safety purposes.
Thank you, Vice Chair Collins. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, is there a motion on the floor?
So
motion by Vice Chair Collins. Is there a second, please? Say again, is there a second?
I'll second, Mayor.
Second by Attorney Murphy. Roll call vote is required. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Ms. Naylor?
No.
Attorney Murphy?
Yes.
Ms. Hurst?
No.
Ms. Gresham?
No.
Ms. Perez?
She was muted. You're muted.
Sorry.
Maria, you're
Yes.
muted.
Yes.
Mr. Collins?
Yes.
Mayor Sarno?
Yes, more than sufficient votes, this matter passes. Thank you very much. Next item, we'll move to informational items. Superintendent Warwick, the DESE changes to the 2021 MCAS administration, please.
So I have some good news. We did get some good news from DESE relative to changes in the MCAS administration. This came about because of really tremendous efforts by, the Mass Association of School Committees, the Mass Association of School Superintendents, MTA, parents really saying that this just didn't make sense. And all that pushback led to a little more than half of maybe what we were looking for, but at least it's moving in the right direction and some immediate relief. So I do thank all of the folks on the committee. We sent letters. We were active in this through Mass Association of School Committees and MASS, and it actually brought about, I think, a very positive change. I'm going to have Paul walk through the changes with you. And again, I think they're very, very positive. And I think the biggest one is for our 11th graders, to come back in at this point and be responsible to take an MCAS for graduation. That would have been outrageous, and that's been eliminated. They don't have to worry about that. They have to get their CD by passing all their courses, which makes sense. So, but I'll let Paul walk through all of it with you. But I want to thank everyone for all their support as we push back against this, because this is a step forward. Paul?
Good evening, everybody. Thanks. So I just have 2 slides for you. And so just wanted to walk through the changes the superintendent was talking about. Right here, we're looking at the 3rd through 8th grade MCAS and where we stand with 3rd through 8th grade. You can see the testing windows. So they did extend them a little later in the year than they usually do. So we're going through June 11th for the 3rd through 8th grade MCAS testing. It is still true that all 3rd through 8th graders are expected to take the MCAS this year. Although, just as a reminder, only 5th and 8th graders take science. So in the other grade levels, they just take the English language arts and math. The other change they made at the 3rd through 6th grade is they are only requiring each student to take one session of each test. So normally those tests are 2 sessions each. And so that each student will be randomly assigned to one ELA session, one math session, and one science session. They are administering the tests online. The other concession or change that they made, which I think is very helpful, is for 3rd through 8th grade, they're going to allow students and in families that have opted for full remote for the remainder of the year to go ahead and take that MCAS test remotely. So that's a big change and is helpful because we were obviously, as we've talked about previously, navigating how do we figure out how to bring them, already said they don't, how do we bring them in to give them the test while we're also trying to bring in students, other students for in-person learning. And so that's helpful on the 3rd to 8th grade front. The next slide is the high school and updates on the high school testing. Again, you can see the testing windows there. There's the ELA and math, which runs also into June, and the science, which is just in that first couple weeks of June. I'll speak out the science in one second. So the 10th graders are still expected to take and pass an MCAS to earn their diploma. So the graduation requirement has not changed for current 10th graders. Now, students who have opted for fully remote, who are 10th graders, we're going to encourage them to come in and take the MCAS this year, because if they don't do that, they're losing one opportunity to take the test between now and when they're scheduled to graduate. For the biggest change, as the superintendent spoke to, for the current 11th graders, the state has decided to extend the modified competency determination to current 11th graders. That's the same process we're going through with our current 12th graders, and we went through with 12th graders last year, where we were able to certify their competency based on them passing classes that are relevant to MCAS. So for example, in math, if a student had earned a passing grade in Algebra 1 or geometry, that was sufficient to say they've met their competency determination. So that same process will apply for 11th graders. 11th graders can opt to test this spring or next fall for purposes of scholarship eligibility. So for things like the John and Abigail Adams Scholarship, they do still need to take the test, but the state has said that if a student is fully remote and doesn't want to come in to test this school year, they can take the retest in the fall and will still be eligible for scholarships. Science, as I think we've talked about previously, this has not changed. For the current 10th, 11th, and 12th graders, the science is not required to earn the diploma. The next class that will have to pass the science MCAS to earn their diploma is the current 9th graders. Importantly though, even for those 10th graders who have to take MCAS, the state is not allowing the high school MCAS to be administered remotely. So current 10th graders who have made a decision to remain fully remote will have to come into school to take the MCAS. We will be encouraging them to do so they don't miss that opportunity to take the test. And our plan currently is to bring fully remote students into schools the week of May 3rd at the 10th grade level to take MCAS. That's the very first week of the window, so that we don't, hopefully, have to bring fully remote students into the buildings. At the same time, we're bringing in students who've opted for in-person learning. As you know, the state has not identified a date for the return to in-person learning for high school yet. And then you can see at the bottom the expected testing times for the high school MCAS. Now they did not shorten that test for high school. The students have to take the same number of sessions they would take in a normal year. And that kind of concludes the update on any changes from DESE.
Thank you, Mr. Foster, AKA Stats. If there's any questions or comments on that. Ms. Gresham?
Yeah.
Ms. Gresham,
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Is there a way we can get a copy of that, Mr. Foster?
Absolutely. We can send that right out.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gresham. Any other questions or comments?
I have one
Ms.
clarifying
Bailey?
question. How will we publicize that, especially for the 11th graders to be able to get the scholarship?
Superintendent Wolf?
Yeah, no, we'll work hard with the cell to get that information out because it's very important information. You're right. Some people are going to want to come in because of the scholarship piece. And a lot of our kids do get that scholarship, so we'll work hard to get that information out.
Thank you.
Good question. Thank you, Ms. Naylor. Good question on that. Any other questions or comments? Okay, hearing none, we'll move to graduation, the news on graduation rates and dropout rates. Superintendent Ward, please.
Thank you, Mayor. We prepared a PowerPoint for you on this, and Paul's going to project it on the screen for you. And we have the data from 2012 to 2020. 2012 was the first year we put in our strategic plan, which put in a lot of the pieces to improve the graduation, improve the dropout rate. So, you know, that's where we started the data from, and showing you the data going forward. We broke it in, and on the first slide, as you can see here, is some extra groups. The red line on the top is the state rate, and then you can see how that has flowed pretty consistently through the years. And the district rate in the black line, you can see that in 12, we were 56.6. This year, the 4-year graduation rate was 77%. What we wanted to do was present some extra information for you so that you see the delineation between the different schools and types of schools. So we did an extra blue line that showed the district without the ZEP schools and the alternative schools. And you can see that blue line going from 65.2 to 90.3, exceeding the state rate, by the way. So he also showed you the ZEP rate. You can see on the bottom, there's been good improvement in the ZEP schools relative to the graduation rate. The next slide, the 5-year graduation rate, similar information, and very consistent. You can see the movement. Great improvement, some of the best improvement in the state on the 4- and 5-year graduation rate in Springfield. When you take a look at our schools without the ZEP and without the alternative schools, we're actually at the state number. So that's incredible improvement. So our goal all along has been to narrow the gap with the state. You can see the ZEP schools have made good gains over the years also. A 5-year extended engagement rate, the next slide, you can see the similar pattern showing very strong gains, 63 to 79.7 district. The district without the ZEP and the alternative schools, 69.6 to 90.1, right up near the state rate. You know, a lot of districts don't have all the alternative schools, the public day schools, so that data isn't counted in their rates. So this shows you how we would look without that data. Next slide, we have the dropout rate. Again, the news is very, very good on the dropout rate. In fact, it's probably the best. From 2012 to 2020, we've gone from 10 to 3%. That's the biggest decrease in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. I'm very, very proud of our staff. Great work on this. You can see the profiles, how when you look at ZEP, there's been gains. And when you look at the district, without a ZEP or the alternative schools, we're actually, again, lower than the state, 1.4%. And we show you our high schools and their rates. I think you're going to be pleasantly surprised, but those numbers are very, very positive. So in the next slide, page 6, you can see a chart with all of the data. And you can see what we talked about earlier, the citywide rate of 56.6 to 77. But then you start looking at some of our schools. So Central, for example, in 2012 was 74.6, 2020, 88.4. Conservatory is newer schools, there's not as many years. Putnam, 71.1 in 2012, 97.6 on the 4-year graduation rate. Renaissance, 78.9 to 89.3. SciTech, 39.9 in 2012, 85.4 in the most recent data. Absolutely incredible. You can see some nice gains. Commerce, 35.4 to 61.8. Duggan has moved along through the years also. And on the bottom, we have our alternative schools. The alternative schools, remember, the numbers of students, and they're all at-risk students. So that data fluctuates greatly because the N is so small. 5-year graduation rates.
Superintendent Ward, can I point out on the alternative schools, many times in other districts, you don't see alternative schools.
No.
Those kids are left to fend on their own. And even the drug and alcohol school, which we probably taken on, we take kids from other district areas. So that's why when you see sometimes those other numbers there, there's no alternative for the kids. We give a number of alternatives to continue to try to reach these kids because we know there's
Right.
promise in them and we do above and beyond.
And everyone that graduates is overcoming great difficulty. So it's an incredible accomplishment. And as we go to those graduations, you can see that in the families. But yeah, very, very, positive piece. Our alternative schools do an absolutely incredible job. My first job as a teacher in Springfield was with our first alternative school. So I have great respect for those folks. 5-year graduation rate, same thing. When you look at the overall, significant gains, 16%. But when you go from school to school, again, you see great gains in our comprehensive schools. SciTech, again, 45.2 in 2012, 86.2. So that's absolutely incredible. But you see good gains across. You see commerce, 38.5 up to 64. So very, very strong in all of the schools. 5-year extended engagement rate, these look the same, it's the same profile, very, very strong gains, and the gains definitely narrowing the gap with the state. Page 9, the dropout rate. You can see the 10 to 3%, which we were talking about. But again, I think it's real important to get into the school data. So like Central in 2012, 7.7%, 1.6%. Observatory of the Arts, Central was 7.7, it's 1.4, excuse me. Because, trying to read going across.
1.6.
Yeah, 1.6. Putnam, 5.1, going across, 0.8. SciTech, again, 11.6 in 2012, 2%. Commerce, 13.6 down to 4. So again, very strong showing across all of the schools. Again, when you look at that in the aggregate, the best improvement in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. We broke the data out like we always try to do by subgroups to see, are these gains being experienced against all the subgroups? And we showed this data a little differently. We have 2012 and 2020 district-wide without the ZEP. Then we have district no ZEP and no ALT, and compare those 2012 to 2020. And you can see those gains. And when you see the red dots, you see the state. So when you start getting into our subgroups, you can see we haven't closed the gap with the state. We're exceeding the state. You know, our African-American black subgroup, we're exceeding the state. Our Hispanic Latino group, you see the tremendous gains. You see now you're up to the state total, but when you have no ZEP, no ALT, you're exceeding the state. Our English language learners, you can see the enormous gains, and again, exceeding the state. So not only did we close the gap, we went by it. So same thing with students with disabilities. The 5-year rate on the next page, similar data. So when you disaggregate among the subgroups, that's the best story of all. Same thing for 5-year extended engagement rate, and getting into the subgroup piece is the best story of all, and you can go through that and see what great gains. The dropout on page 13, you can see all students, see the drop in all students, but then get into your subgroups. So you can see that when you disaggregate in the African American and Black subgroup, tremendous decrease, but you can see that now we're under the state. That's absolutely incredible. You know, Holyoke and Springfield have the 2 highest poverty rates in the state, so this state is particularly great. Look at the Hispanic Latino, again, under the state overall, less than half of the state when you disaggregate the kids in the alternatives and ZEP schools. English language learners, again, you can see the tremendous improvements, and again, under the state. So not only have we closed the gap with the state, we're actually under the state. You can see very positive data relative to the decrease in students with disabilities. So when you drill down and get into the different subgroups, that's the best story of all with this data, which we're particularly proud of, because it's for all of our kids. Then what we did was we showed our rates on page 14 for 4-year graduation rate against similar profile schools, so schools with similar poverty rates, knowing that Holyoke and Springfield have the highest poverty rate. So you can see the SPS district at 77% for four-year graduation rate. You go across and see that only one of these districts is higher. We're higher than every other district. When you take out the ZEPs and the alternative, we're way above those other districts. So again, very positive story going across. Same thing for the 5-year rate. We're one of the highest among those districts, even though we're at the highest poverty level. So very positive data. And extended engagement rate on page 16, really the same story as the graduation rates. And the dropout, again, the best among all of these districts overall. And when you disaggregate without the ZEP and the alternatives, you are less than half of the other schools, but we're the lowest of all of these districts. So tremendous job done by the teachers, the administrative team in the schools, and all the administrative staff in pulling this together and really bringing about incredible improvements over the years. We're not where we want to be. We'd like that dropout rate to be even lower, and we're going to keep working at it. A lot of good strategies and a credit to our entire staff for a great job. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Superintendent Warwick. And this is something that the school committee should be, though there's more work to be done, commending and rejoicing and continuing to work hard to move those numbers, not condemning our system. People are entitled to their opinion, and that's fine. We're showing you the facts right now, and we're not going to stop until we continue to increase that graduation rate and continue to knock down that dropout rate. But people are entitled to their opinion, not the facts. So we should be commending this, continue to work hard because we want to do even better, but not condemning our own system with falsehoods. I'll open it up to questions or comments from school committee members.
I would like to make a comment.
Ms. Naylor.
First, I am really excited about the numbers. I think this is saying a lot about the work that we all continue to do together. So definitely this is commendable, and so excited to be able to get the positive information out before somebody can try to get some negative information out there. This is big. My only question that I have is when we look at the high schools, can we also, as great of a job as Paul did with giving us the breakdown, this is fantastic. I would like to see for each school also the breakdown of the kids who are in the general population and then the kids who are in like the links programs or the SET.
That's a good point, because
I think it would give us a story to understand, because I know some of the high schools now have those programs in it, and that could also be skewing some of their numbers in a way of speaking, but I would love to see that to get better understand what that looks like.
So we do have the overall SPED by school. We can do that for you. We could get down to those other subgroups, and typically in the more intense subgroups, the kids are going to struggle more on the test.
Absolutely.
And that's what happens. And very often, in most other districts, they're not serving those kids in district programs. They're sending them to out-of-district programs. They're not reflected in their school's data. In our schools, they are reflected in the data. So if we disaggregated that, it would be even more positive and be more reflective of what we're doing against the rest of the state.
I agree, and that's why I asked the question, Superintendent, because a lot of times people give us their numbers and they don't have the same constituency base that we do.
Right.
So it would be nice to be able to compare apples to apples.
And we created our own programs because we knew we could do a better job for our kids who had the most significant needs, and we could keep them in the least restrictive environment. By doing so, of course, all of their data now is reflected in the school's data, and it does have an impact relative to pulling it down. You can see the students with disabilities have made gains, but naturally the kids with the most intense disabilities are going to score lower, and it does have an impact. So when you saw those tremendous improvements at SciTech has an array of those low incidence programs. It would even be higher, more improvement if we didn't have that in there. But we'll pull that apart for you.
Thank you.
I say will, but I know that my statistical expert, Mr. Foster, I'm volunteering for him again.
Any other questions or comments? This is good news, boys and girls. Okay, hearing none, we'll move forward to reports of Reports of committee.
Did you want, are you doing this one first, or
I don't think we have that.
the building changes? Are you doing?
No, I was gonna,
In your report.
So is that your report?
Chris, but I'm gonna do it in my report.
Okay.
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
All right, reports of committees, standing committees, student relation, parent concerns, Ms. Gresham.
No report, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Ms. Gresham. Buildings and Maintenance Committee, Vice Chair Collins.
Well, we reported out at least one of the items, and the superintendent's going to report out on building changes that they're proposing for next year as the other item that we dealt with as well.
Thank you. Any questions or comments of Mr. Collins, Vice Chair Collins' report? Okay, hearing none, Legislative and Contracts Committee, Ms. Perez. You were mute, I think you said.
We also already
mute, Maria.
reported. We also already reported in the legislative committee.
Thank you very much, Ms. Perez. Any questions? Thank you. D is Curriculum and Programs Committee, Ms. Hurst.
No report.
Thank you, Ms. Hurst. E is Budget and Finance Committee, Mr. Collins.
Yes, we're gonna, you know how we normally have our second public input session, and we in the past, we've been using the library at Central. Clearly, that's not going to be something we can do this year because we can't get all of us in, for one thing, and we don't have Zooming capabilities there. So we're going to be changing the location to here. We'll put out the advertisement to make sure that people know where it is, and that give people a chance, just like we do with Public Speakout, to call into the office and say that they want to do a Speakout, so that we'll have a list of people who might want to speak out on the budget, and they can come into the Zoom and speak out on the budget. But just because of logistics, it won't work out in the Central Library this year, so we're changing location.
Thank you, Vice Chair Collins. Any questions or comments on that? Hearing none, we'll move to Vocational Education Committee. Attorney Murphy, please.
No report, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney Murphy. G is Technology Committee. Ms. Naylor, please.
No report.
Thank you, Ms. Naylor. School Safety Committee, Ms. Gresham, please.
No report, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Special Subcommittee Staff Demographics, Ms. Perez, please.
No report, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. Report of the students representative to the school committee, Nazir Jennings. Naz, I know at times he's been on. Now it's been a little difficult. Naz, so we hope that you're doing well and look forward to getting you back on when your schedule permits. Report of the superintendent, Superintendent Warwick, please.
Thank you, Mayor. I know some of you probably would wish I didn't have a report, but I do. So I just wanted to start with a reopening. I just want to thank everyone for their participation, for their support, and all of the work that was done. We had a really great reopening. It's a credit to the staff. Our schools have stepped up and just done a fabulous job. We've worked now through the A and B groups and our C group, and a really great start. But it was all the planning and hard work done by the committee, the staff, put a plan together. Now it's executing that plan. We're gonna certainly have some bumps in the road. We're doing a lot of testing. We're gonna come to some situations. We're gonna find some positives. Jeannie's gonna come out with a new report to let the committee know weekly how that piece is going. And but again, a great start, and really have to tip my cap to the principals in the buildings and the teachers. Just an incredible job for our kids. I was talking to Latonia on the way in. Of course, the first thing you want to say is, how did the kids feel about it? And you know, when you hear the kids were happy to come back and felt good about it, at the end of the day, that's really what it's all about. BAR grant, we have very, very good news. They've given us a second grant on our Portrait of a Graduate work, $300,000 over the next 18 months for implementation. They've been very excited about the prospects of this Portrait of a Grad work. I know several school committee members have been involved, and we've gotten input from a wide array of folks. So that work is going along very well. And now we have the BAR grant to support that work. So very pleased with that news. Attendance, I was looking at some data. And as of the end of March, our attendance, and this was all remote, was 92.5%. Typically, at that same date the year before, 92.9. So only 0.4 off, which is really, again, a testimony to our teachers and our staff at the schools having engaged the kids and kept them moving through this very, very challenging process. So I think that's great news. Some also positive news, chronic absences, which have been reported up across the state, a severe problem. Right now, we're at 22.4%. Last year, we were 23.2%. Chronic absences are actually down, which is absolutely positively incredible. And again, I think great work by the staff. Fall 2 sports, I just want to commend Commissioner Helen Calton Harris for her incredible work and her insight that we should be testing 3 times a year. As you know, in football, we caught some positives. We nipped it in the bud. We've tested everyone, and 100% of the kids, over 200 of our football players, can restart because they came back completely clean. But again, I think that preventative testing, and it was such a wise decision, and they're all negative and they can restart. And the kids, I was talking to Dwayne, they're absolutely ecstatic to get going again. So again, our health commissioner has been with us and helping us all through this, and just want to thank her publicly because she's been incredible. Thank you. We're taking a look as a staff. DESE is offering an opportunity to look at proposing a single district virtual school. And we're taking a look at the opportunity for Springfield. This situation, a lot of kids have gone remote, or a lot of kids across the Commonwealth and in Springfield have gone to homeschooling because of this whole emergency. So a lot of the bigger districts in the Commonwealth, like us, are taking a look at, should we start a virtual school of our own where we could support those kids? And for families that are homeschooling, we would be able to provide the technology support, we'd be able to provide the teaching support. We could offer them a real positive option if that's what they want. So we're taking a look at that. We'll bring you back more information as we look closer. But we think this is a real smart move for the district, and I think we can do a much better job for our families than the options available right now.
Mr. Superintendent, can I ask you a question on that? If let's say that we do start a virtual school, and so they're now Springfield students, would they be eligible to participate in sports? You know, I'll have to check that out, but my gut instinct is highly likely yes, but we'll double check that. I know with all of our other options, we've always been able to co-opt the kids into our schools. So I'm thinking we have a very good shot at it, but I'll work with Dwayne on it and have him check with MIAA. It's a great question. We haven't got that far in the process, but our thought process would be highly likely, because even our kids in our alternative schools or some of our schools that can't offer a sport, Dwayne works with us to co-op and they can play in another school. So we would definitely work to do that. It would give them a more robust.
Yeah, no, it certainly would. And again, I think, you know, highly qualified teachers, some of the kids that are homeschooling, the technology support that we'd be able to offer. I think we could do a really good job with this. The hard challenge we had was at this time, as we're trying to reopen and deal with everything else, how do we make the time for one more proposal? But it was just the right thing to do. So we're putting the pedal to the metal and going after it. But we'll be bringing you more information on that and bring it forward for approval if and when we can put that together. Meals, during this pandemic, again, I think our department, Pat Roach, is on. He stepped up in a huge way with Sodexo. As we reopen, our kids that are in hybrid or the kids that are coming back to school are going to get their meals during the day. We're keeping the feeding sites open. We've gone from 18 to 11, but we're doing them 4 to 6 in the evening. And we're moving forward. We're still feeding a lot of kids. And in fact, early next week, we're going to have doled out 7 million meals since this started. So rather incredible. So really, really proud of our department with that. And lastly, just some building changes for next year brought about by some of the school construction. The first bit of course, great news is Brightwood and Lincoln, our new facility, will be going online and going online with some new preschools too. So that's very, very exciting, and we'll be bringing you more information on that. I know Maria's looking at it every day, but every time I go down there, I get more excited about it. It's absolutely incredible. Some other pieces we're looking at as we vacate the old Lincoln School, we're looking at our old Public Day Middle School, the old Eastern Avenue School on the corner of Eastern Avenue and Alden Street. Was built in 1898 and is in really tough condition. So we're going to take that and the students from Balliet Middle and other alternative school and merge them into our Lincoln School, which is a facility we put a lot of money into. New roof, new windows, new doors, new bathrooms. We brought Rhonda Jacobs and her team in, and they were beyond ecstatic with this process. We can provide some consolidation of services. We have a lot more square footage, and the building's in just so much better shape. And part of our plan with all of these moves is to get the buildings in that were built in the 1890s offline. So we're working to do that. With what we're going to do is we're going to recommend, again, 2 of our 1898 buildings, Public Day Middle and the old Brightwood School. We'll be recommending to you later on a vote to decommission those buildings. And when we decommission, they get turned over to the city. Another piece of good news, looking at Balliet, which we're going to free up, the old Balliet School on Seymour Street. Planning to open that in 2022-23 for preschool. And we'll be able to fit 13 preschool classes. We brought Rose Walzak, our preschool supervisor, in our facility department. We can serve about 200 to 250 preschool students. One of the biggest challenges going from half day, which is our 2.5 hour program, to full day. And when we run the 2.5 hour program, you can see the attendance rates. It's just not popular. It's not getting used. The full day program is very, very popular. So it would allow us to offer some more full day classes, which has been very, very popular with our parents, and the data has been incredibly popular. So you go and look at the data. It's very, very positive. Over time, we're going to go from 1,000 preschool students, just about all half day back in 2012. And in the next few years, we'll be up at 2,000 and we have them all full day. So with these moves, we're going to have the extra preschools because we're going to pick up extra space at Brightwood and Lincoln. We're going to get extra space at Balliet. And then we're going to get extra space for preschools at Homer and DeBerry, which we built into the plans. And again, we're going to have universal preschool for all kids next year that want it, but some of it's going to be half days. But by the end of this plan, we'll have all of it full day for our kids and our parents who want it. So that's a 93% increase in our service to preschool students since 2012. So very positive developments. And some of those buildings we're leaving, the administrators are coming into these buildings. They're absolutely ecstatic about the changes. So that concludes my report, Mayor.
Very good report, Superintendent Warwick. Any questions or comments on the superintendent's report?
Yes.
Okay. Ms. Gresham, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yes,
Superintendent, is there a way we can get a number of the students in person per grade this year?
Oh, absolutely. We can get that for you. It's going to constantly change, Barb. It's going to be evolving, right? So May 3rd, again, we're going to go to full. I'm thinking when we go to 5 days, more parents are going to choose in. So what it is now is going to change in the future. But I can have all put together what it is right now, and then as we move to full day, we can get you that information.
Okay.
By grade.
Thank you.
Super.
Thank you, Ms. Gresham. Thank you, Superintendent Warren. Any other questions or comments on the superintendent's report?
I just wanted to make a comment.
Yes, Ms. Naylor.
As Superintendent was saying earlier, my youngest started 6th grade this year. So she was so excited for her first day on Monday. We took pictures like it was the first day of school and posted it on Facebook and stuff like that. But she was so excited, and She's cohort 8, so cohort 8A, if I could say it right, on Monday and Tuesday. And then, so Tuesday when she came home, she just was bragging about how much fun she had and how great it was. So I really wanted to just continue to commend our staff for what they're doing. And the kids are just excited to be there. It's just like that beginning of the school year excitement, and it's beautiful to see it in the home.
Ms. Taylor, if you may, before we started school committee, we spoke about some of the state panels you're on and speak, and they were, and it was, we're glad to hear it. We're not perfect here, but
yes,
you had indicated they were astonished on the things that we did.
Yes,
that we did to prepare for this transition. And maybe with the indulgence school committee, I just was really, it's always good to hear that, hey, see, Springfield's doing some good things. That really struck me, what you said. Rep Fesh was on there, from others that they more affluent districts that did no such thing. So maybe if you could elaborate on that.
Absolutely. I was on a couple of calls earlier this month, and we were on a call, the Massachusetts Education for Equity Partnership and Strategies for Children have been holding these different monthly meetings across the state via Zoom. And so we were on with Chairwoman Peisch, who is the chairwoman of the Education Committee at the State House. And then we had Chair Lewis as well that was on and talking about the work that we are doing as a state and all this other stuff. And it was such a pleasure for me to be able to have the conversation specifically with Chairwoman Peisch and share the town hall that we did and just some of the other things that we've been doing to really make sure that we're transitioning back and taking care of our staff. And some of the folks on the line, some of the advocates were saying, you guys already took a survey. You already know how many kids are coming back. You already know this. You've been talking to parents. And these things are not happening across the state. So I was so excited to share about the progress. And like I said to the mayor and to superintendent and to our vice chair, we're not perfect, right? We got a long way to go because everybody does. But it was such a relief to sit on there with some of our most avid enemies in the advocacy role who were sitting there with their mouths open saying, wow, you guys are doing some great work. And it's not happening in Boston, it's not happening in Worcester, but it's happening here in Springfield. So kudos to us.
Thank you, Latonia. I just, school committee woman Naylor, I appreciate it because it really struck me when you said those districts. So thank you on that. Any other questions pertaining to the superintendent's report? Okay, hearing none, we'll move to unfinished business, please. Okay, hearing none, we'll move to new business, please.
Mayor, could I just say?
Yes, Attorney Murphy, go ahead.
Thank you. I wasn't sure if I should say this during the superintendent's report, but I think everything went as well as it could go. My son also went back 6th grade, cohort A, and everything went great. Parents were following the rules, the social distancing, the masks, the traffic patterns. So, I mean, of course, there's going to be problems and issues, but it was clear to me, I think, that, the students particularly were happy to be back, and that's great. And the administration and the teachers and custodians and administrators, they did a great job getting everybody back. So I just want to thank everyone for that. And I also lastly want to say that the University of Massachusetts is playing in the Frozen Four tonight in hockey.
Sure.
And I don't know if you guys saw this, but because of Corona, one of their goalies had to sit, and a kid who went to Cathedral, Pope Francis, is going to be the backup goalie tonight. He's from Ludlow. So he's going to be, and his name is, if I'm going to get it right, is Zach Steigmeyer, and he's going to be suiting up in the Frozen Four tonight. So I just, Springfield has a great tradition of hockey back in the old days of Commerce, Classical, Cathedral, Palm, Putnam, Tech.
Not so much Commerce, Classical
and had a good run there. So just wanted to just remind you guys of that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and can I just, you brought up a good point. Superintendent Warwick, over the weekend, we spoke a number of times. I want to commend Superintendent Warwick and Pat Roach. You know, we put out there that possibly there might be a transportation busing issue that really came at the 11th hour. Once we were told everything was going to be okay. The superintendent, Pat Roach, works feverishly for a student, and everything worked out, and it was great, you know, to see Monday morning school buses and crossing guards out there. But we put it out there. We wanted to make parents aware that there could be a glitch, and we would deal with it. They worked around the clock over the weekend to make sure that there were no glitches whatsoever on that. So I really want to commend them, and I know the teachers were excited to get back. We did the C3 policing, Bunny Hop, Mason Square C3, which Coach LeVar Glick from my staff represented me there, and I was at the Forest Park of Kensington and White Street School. Students were excited to get back. Teachers couldn't wait to get back on it. So that's not to say, as Latonia, as you say, we're not perfect, and things will crop up, and we'll deal with them, but we're getting back there.
Yeah, no, so appreciate that. I just wanted to say from the bottom of my heart, I want to thank our staff.
Yeah.
We have an incredible staff. They stepped up. Our kids were first and foremost. And I agree. I tip my cap to and commend them because they delivered for us. They've delivered for us on the graduation dropout. They've delivered for us in the school reopening. I'm just very, very proud of them. And I always say Springfield staff is second to none anywhere, and the data bears that out.
You know, we said when this COVID-19 coronavirus pandemic started, it's been surreal. We did say, I remember in the Sunday night meeting in my office at 7:30, 8 o'clock, that though it'll be difficult to shut down, it's going to be twice as hard to reopen. And we've been able to do that. So everybody involved, from cabinet heads down the rank and file, tremendous job has been done. There's more to do. Glitches will pop up, and we'll deal with them. But we're back, and soon we'll be back to nearly full time.
Yep.
So I'm sorry, just you got to make sure you speak about good news. Any other new business at all?
Just an interesting factoid for Attorney Murphy, that Tech back in the heyday had many Western Mass.
They were very good.
Things, but most importantly, their coach couldn't skate.
See, Peter's an old hockey player too, so Peter played hockey.
Yeah, the coach couldn't skate.
Yeah, Eddie Mason couldn't skate, but he's a great coach. He's a great coach. That's
a little levity there.
Hopefully no one on the UMass team has that.
Go ahead, Attorney Murphy.
I'm sorry, there was no helmets back there, back then.
No, that explains a lot.
Anything else?
I move we adjourn.
There's a motion to adjourn.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I did have a question.
Go ahead, Ms. Hurst.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Superintendent, can you share a bit more with us about the announcement that came out yesterday in the media about the graduations and the prom?
So we've gotten some clarifications from DESE and advisories from DESE on what we should be doing, what we shouldn't be doing. And DESE issued a very, very strong advisory against running proms because of all the restrictions that would be in place, that it would be almost impossible to run. After looking at that, our team went to Jeannie Clancy and I went to Helen Calton Harris, and she strongly advised that it would be impossible to run the proms. And the kids were asking, so we wanted to let the kids know that that's going to be a bridge too far this year. Again, I went to Helen on the advisory. Strong advisory from DESE was if you can get an open air environment on the graduation. So I've met with my principals, my secondary principals. Universally, they recommended an outside graduation because there's tremendous restrictions from DESE on the inside graduations and there's safety problems. Helen reiterated to me that we needed to really get in an open air environment and then we could run our graduation. So we're going to run right on schedule. We're going to be on the central field, and we're going to, central field is fenced off. We'll be able to invite guests, have them socially distanced within their family groups, and really have a graduation so the kids can get a stage experience. But outside is going to be a much safer venue. And as the mayor said, we'll build in some rain days if we get some rain, we'll cancel. So we're going Monday to Thursday for 2 weeks in a row, like we always do. We built in Friday as a rain date the first week, Friday the second week, and then that next week, we built in 3 other rain dates. God forbid we have that much rain, but we'll be able to get everybody in and do it safely, but give the kids the experience of a real graduation, which they really wanted, and they let us know that last year. So we did a virtual. I think we did a good job. The schools tried to do something modified, but the kids really missed the opportunity to be on the stage. Pat Sullivan has stepped up. He's going to help me. We're going to rent a real quality stage and a real quality audio system to do everything. We're actually going to also videotape it all for the parents as well. So, but the kids will be able to invite guests, and we'll be able to socially distance the guests. We'll be able to control the crowd, and we'll have plenty of parking for folks who come. So we're putting a plan together with our principals, but we wanted to get information out so people could start to plan. Thank you.
Thank you for bringing that up, Ms. Hurst. That was important on it. Thank you. Anything else on? Oh, there was a motion on the floor to adjourn by Vice Chair Collins. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Second by Ms. Naylor. Roll call vote is required. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Ms. Naylor,
Yes.
Attorney Murphy,
Yes.
Ms. Hurst,
Yes.
Ms. Gresham,
Yes.
Ms. Perez,
Yes.
Mr. Collins,
Yes.
Mayor Sarno.
Yes, more than sufficient vote. This matter passes. Good evening, good health, and thank you for watching.
Thank you, everyone.
Tony, where you?
Take care.
Go UMass.